if people aren't able to understand that this is entertainment, is that the fault of Transformers and Michael Bay, or is it the fault of the education you receive in your household about how you should feel about the things around you?
Part of me, like, always in the back of my mind, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's completely wrong, but part of me also thinks, like, man, I feel like porn could be damaging to the young mind of like a teenage boy or something like that, you know, or growing up and getting that instant gratification all of the time. And then I feel like inevitably, to some capacity, you have to, as a young person that continually watches that regularly, objectify women in some way, or it's hard to avoid stuff like that.
What's the difference of porn? Like if like a person sees porn versus like if they see a violent movie, do you feel like if people aren't able to understand that this is entertainment, is that the movie's fault? Is that the fault of Transformers and Michael Bay, or is it the fault of the education you receive in your household about how you should feel about the things around you?
I think the problem, Jack, is just having an unrealistic expectation. Maybe that's it.
That's
of just
point.
like expecting what you see online to be a representation of what's, you know,
because
in the real world.
You understand it's not necessarily educational, and it's also like, obviously anything in excess is bad. You know, if I eat a bunch of French fries every day and then I only eat French fries because I don't know how to cook anything but French fries, it's gonna be pretty shitty for me. I think when people say that porn is harmful, I think at the root of it, we need to start having better conversations about sex and our expectations on sex with people, even when they're younger, you know, about like what porn is and what sexuality is and what you're actually seeing, and how it's not necessarily a reflection of the reality we live in. It is a fantasy that we're providing. But on top of that, with OnlyFans is so much more diverse in terms of like the content you're able to see. So it's not necessarily always porn, but even if it were to be porn, it's not necessarily like like a girl that looks like me with like perfect proportions fucking guy with like a 10-inch dick. It could just be like normal looking people doing normal things. And when we start normalizing it instead of seeing it as like this taboo thing we should all avoid, we start realizing that it's just an act that people do and not necessarily something that is like evil or deserves consequences for being enjoyed.
That makes sense. Yeah. One final thought that I hear a lot, right? Not necessarily that I believe this, but I hear that like porn can be damaging to the family unit because people are getting married at a lot older ages now, and they're having children at less rates. Elon Musk tweeted that he thinks that like the collapse of the population is going to be one of the biggest threats to humanity in the coming years or whatever. Because people can avoid going out and trying to meet people in public, and their hormones that they have within them, right? Like for a dude, like their testosterone, like maybe it's depleted when you do your stuff.
I wouldn't trust any weird thing that comes out that guy's mouth, but I don't think that's necessarily porn's fault. I think what's happening is during COVID, people have really had a hard time learning how to communicate with each other and kind of go outside and take chances when they misunderstand one another. I feel like during COVID, everyone went online, and it's easy to say things and it's easy to experience life on the internet. And that's not necessarily a porn thing. That's just the thing that happened when everyone is forced to be inside. And now that we're all back outside, people have just kind of absorbed like these same type of social cues you learn on the internet, and now they're like bringing it to people in real life. And that's why I feel like people seem angrier to me, you know, and people seem a lot harder to compromise with or like kind of reach like a level ground with. And that's not necessarily a porn thing. That's more so an internet thing, you know, like I feel like we're just not learning how to become more social and learning how to communicate. I don't think there's a problem with people getting married later. I think as long as people are getting married because they want to get married and they're more stable and they're able to create like a loving present household, whenever you get married is totally fine. And if porn was something that were to become an issue in someone's relationship, that's not necessarily, it's not like a cigarette's fault you died. It's like your choices for continually like chain smoking for 20 years.
This has been a long-standing trend though of people getting married later and all that, not having kids. But I think it's a lot of the internet it's easier to have that interaction online. It's so much simpler than going out and like think of how much effort it takes to like get ready, go out. You have to be, or you could just sit on the computer, do nothing, and just chat away with your friends. Another thing that I heard is that millennials are getting married later in part because they're moving out of their parents' home later because they're choosing to stay home and save, or it's too expensive to move out, so they stay at home. I think that's another big contributor. And the divorce rates when you get married after 25 drop substantially. The more education you have also drops.
Yay!
Because we all hear the statistic like 50% of divorce, 50% of divorces end in marriage. Marriages end in divorce, but that takes into account like third marriages or like if you're married twice, your chances of divorce are significantly higher. And I think actually, more recently, it's about 65% stay married. So you're more likely to stay married, but then again, you could also argue, well, they haven't been together long enough to maybe get divorced. So like you have to go through the entire lifespan.
You have to wait till they die to
get the true statistic. Because what if they're married for 20 years and then they, divorced? Is that, at what age does that factor in?
I think
I don't know.
I think people are getting, also the thing with the internet is I feel like people are able to, when people find their little community, they're able to make more assumptions about the monsters that they don't understand. And I feel like that creates more division. And I feel like that destroys communication. I feel like, for example, like someone can assume something. If you say OnlyFans girl, people have a myriad of assumptions about that based on what community of the internet you're from. And from those assumptions, people will decide they don't want to give you the time of day or they don't. Whereas in real life, when you would actually just go outside to parties and meet people will tell you like, hey, I'm trans, or hey, I'm different than you. And people would just have to learn how to navigate the world with differences like that.
I like how what I see like a deep value of yours is just respect for people. And I think that's really good. I think a lot of people lack respect for people that have opposing viewpoints that they have nowadays.
I just feel like it's important to learn empathy first and foremost. And I'm coming from a place where I feel like I'm misunderstood often. And one part is because I put myself on the internet and I dance and I talk about gangbangs. But at the same time, I don't feel like I need to intellectualize that, because I don't necessarily think doing all that sexy stuff means I'm less intelligent or like less deserving of respect. I feel like what speaks most importantly is what I'm able to contribute to the community and how I make other people feel. And if I make people feel good, what is the harm in that? If I make them feel good in a healthy way where they understand that the things that I create are entertainment and not necessarily a replacement for actual human connection.